Good morning and welcome back to The Mailman, the brand focused on breaking the stigma around male body image issues and the mental health impact it can have on you. So I thought I'd do a quick video today on acne and my experience of acne. I should really learn how to kind of add edits and cuts of kind of pictures of how I used to look like, not just for the acne video, but just in general, just so that some of you guys can see, you know, what I've had to go through, how I used to look, both, you know, when I lost shitloads of weight, but then also, you know, when I've been more this size, just so that you can experience and understand that it's not just, you know, I've been acne free, or, you know, you might think, you know what, you're not that big, what are you worried about? Just to give you a bit of background and kind of context to what I'm talking about, because I have had it pretty bad for a number of years, especially in my younger years. So I think if I could try and find those old pictures, it'll be good for you to see those and understand really what I've gone through. So, but yeah, let's stick onto the topic of today's video, which is acne. So I have had, in fact, I can kind of break it right down to when I first experienced acne, and I remember this because I was coming back from a trip to France, and in the, what's it called, not duty free, it's like a hypermarket, they had those like Milka purple like Swiss chocolate bars, but obviously in like bulk. So we bought like a load of those, and I just demolished like an entire bar of chocolate before we even got home. And then literally the next day I had these weird like spots all over my face. Prior to that I was fine, and I was about sort of 12, 13, and I just didn't know what this was. And then fast forward a couple of years, it just continued. Like, this was obviously the core time when you're in school. You kind of notice the same changes with friends. Obviously I went to a boys' school, so I kind of noticed some of my friends also, you know, having spots and pimples. I didn't know what it was kind of linked to. I just thought this seems fairly normal. But there were also a lot of kids that didn't really go through that. They seem to have escaped the acne, and so I didn't really get too affected. I had my own shit to deal with in regards to my weight and my appearance, like just being a big guy. That was more of the focus for me. So the acne side of it, I didn't really understand too much, because it just didn't feel like it was that much of a big deal. But then as time went on, my friends started to recover and lose that acne. You know, they suddenly got their clear skin again. I started to obviously take a bit more care in my own appearance, you know, when I started to shave and you know, started using moisturizers and you know, cleansers and stuff like that, with a view that I thought, you know, it will work, but it didn't. Nothing really seemed to clear my skin. So I didn't really know that it was linked to my diet until probably about 10, 12 years ago, something like that. I did like a blood test thing to find out like what my triggers were, but that was obviously much later on. So yeah, for a number of years I just kind of dealt with acne as a child, which arguably wasn't the end of the world, because there were still kids with acne, even though some of my friends' faces cleared up. What really started to get to me though was when I was a bit more like going into uni. I tried obviously to look different going to uni, because I didn't want to have that same kind of bullying and you know, that kind of male body image problem that I'd faced for, you know, my entire school life. So along with losing the weight before I went to uni, I tried a load of different things on my skin to try and clear that up. Went through a couple of rounds of tablets. I can't remember what they were called, but I remember they were like a yellow pill, and the doctor basically said it takes like 2 months before you would see any results. So the summer prior to uni starting, I basically went on this course. Didn't really see much of an improvement, but then I was also smashing the gym. Like I got down to around just under 13 stone, so that was like a total weight loss of around 6 stone from my peak, which was about 18 and a half. So then I think just the sweating and everything, just kind of, you know, eating cleaner, eating like more clean foods and non-processed foods, it just kind of helped. And I went to uni and I looked great, quite frankly. Like I felt like I'd, you know, cleaned my skin up, I'd lost a load of weight, I was in good shape, I felt better. And this was all because, you know, people made me feel shit for the way that I looked, so I felt like I had to change myself, so that I wouldn't go through another round of bullying and name calling and whatever at uni. So it all kind of worked out in you know, the right way. But then what happens when you go to uni? You start drinking a lot more, eating a lot of crap, and then obviously, you know, not just the weight comes back on, but acne comes back. So at various times throughout my uni life, my skin broke out horribly. There were a couple of times where I would, you know, go away during the summer, come back, and my friends, who I thought were like the non-judgy type, because I'd spend pretty much the whole previous year with them, they'd straight away be like, mate, what the fuck's happened to your face? Why have you got so many spots? And that kind of stuff just suddenly knocked me backwards quite a lot, because it kind of felt, hang on, I wasn't judged by you guys before, and now I am suddenly judged. But they were kind of saying it in like a, what's happened to your face? But we don't care, you know, we're still your friend sort of way. So that was kind of reassuring. But my graduation picture was horrible. I really tried. I went on this apple diet. I don't know if you've ever come across that, Google it. There's a guy that probably is on his yacht somewhere after making money off idiots like me, where he taught a process of, you eat apples for 4 days, nothing but apples, and you drink like, I don't know, like a swimming pool size worth of water, and you flush your system, and then you have to like drink like castor oil or something like that at the end, and then you've got to kind of reintroduce normal foods. I did that before my graduation because I really wanted to clear my skin, but it kind of had the opposite impact. Like my skin was flushing out a lot of toxins and junk that was in my body, so it actually made my skin worse. So I'll try and get a picture of my graduation photo at some point to edit in, but that wasn't how I wanted to be remembered, you know, especially in a graduation picture. But shit happens. That was you know, something I had to deal with. And then obviously started working in London, and the acne just remained. Like it was just one of those things that I just couldn't get rid of. I went from that first course of drugs to another course. It was kind of like trial and error. I was just trying different things. The doctors didn't really know which drug would eventually work, but I think I went through about 4 different brands of drugs to try and combat the acne. So we're talking like this is a good few years now since this has, you know, really kicked in. I was working in London, and there was a point where my skin was just so bad that I stopped going into work. I'd create obviously fake sickness excuses. It was like it was just kind of scarring to me that I just couldn't be comfortable enough to just go into work. And if I did go into work, I'd have to get the tube, and obviously as in the underground, the London Underground. The lights were just so bright in there that I would always pick the corner seat of the end carriage, where luckily for me I get on the train at the end of the line, so I had the whole train to select like where I want to choose. And after a few months of kind of doing this, I realized there were a couple of seats where, depending on which side of my face was the worst, I would alternate so that my face was basically against the where the driver's cabin was. So then that way no one would really see me, they'd only see my good side. So one day I'd be sitting on kind of one side, the next day I'd be sitting on the other side, all dependent on how my skin looked. I'd also started wearing like a bit of makeup just to kind of cover up the really red breakouts, the pus. Like there was a lot of kind of whiteheads and stuff that I had to either pick. Like if you obviously look closely, I've got scars from years and years of picking those. And then obviously at work, I found that I'd leave the house looking more comfortable because my skin hadn't been hit with the elements of the tubes and walking around in London and sweat just during the day. And progressively through the day my skin would look more oily, and it would just kind of look more obvious like I had a real skin problem. So I'd have to kind of go to the toilets midway through the day just to kind of retouch the concealer or the makeup, just to kind of make sure that it kind of remained pretty consistent, so no one would really notice me at work. But it was almost like I was giving this whole issue way more attention than it really needed to. No one really said anything at work. I still had friends, I still did my job, but I just felt seriously insecure. Like I would kind of ask to sit in a certain place on my desk, because I just lied and said it's to do with the lighting, like it kind of helps me and stops me getting headaches, when in fact I just wanted to sit like as far away from people as possible. So just little things like that really started to come into play in my daily habits. And then it just got to a point where honestly, like, you might find this hard to imagine, but there was more kind of acne on my face than there was clear skin. Like usually your breakouts come in like patches, and then you've got like some clear skin around it, and then you've got a bit more acne like in other parts. Mine was just kind of fully everywhere, to the point where I couldn't even like smile or move my mouth properly without like the acne kind of around here cracking or just feeling really sore, or I'd like open my mouth like really wide and then pus would pop like out of the pimples. It was honestly disgusting, but this is what I had to face on my own, going into going to work, going on the tube, seeing people. On the weekends was fine because I just shut myself away. I didn't want to see anyone. Sometimes I'd see my friends that lived nearby only when my skin had kind of calmed down, and I still had acne, but it wasn't like red raw. So I'd kind of fluctuate. Again, I had no real understanding of how my diet was playing a part in this, so I'll come on to that. So then I went through like a period where I was like just really down about everything. Obviously, I wasn't really gymming or anything as well. I couldn't afford to go to the gym. I was on like peanuts in terms of pay. So I was getting bigger and bigger as well, obviously eating junk, whatever I would be able to buy cheap from your kind of discount supermarkets out there. And then I just said, look, to my parents, I can't do this, like it's really bad. They also saw how serious it was and it was getting worse. So then we went through a private route, so through my dad's healthcare plan from his work, I went through to a private hospital where they looked properly, did blood tests and just checked me out, and they recommended Roaccutane. Now, if you've not come across Roaccutane, it's like like a hardcore drug, which, I mean, for me it was a lifesaver. For some it's a life ender, because it is known for having suicidal effects. It's known for kind of altering your mental health, and I don't know the science behind it, but it's quite a serious drug, and they don't really just hand it out. It's like a last resort. So I got to that stage where they were like, look, we feel you're going to be fine mentally, but we're going to start you on this course. It's going to take a few months to kick in, and your face is going to literally dry the fuck out. It's going to peel. Your acne will go, but you're going to have to go through like a worse phase of kind of skin peeling and dryness before you see the benefit. And I was like, you know what, I don't care, I can't get any worse than it is now. So I went on it. It's really expensive, but obviously it was through private medical, so it was free for my dad and for me doing it. But I think normally it's like, for a box of about a month's supply, it was at the time like 200 and something pounds. I don't know what it is now, but I did that for a few months and it worked. Like, it dried my face out like completely. Like, I had like white patches of just dry skin but I didn't have acne, and I loved it. It was just a phenomenal drug. But it was dangerous to kind of keep going because it has impacts on your liver and stuff like that. So I had to kind of cycle the courses. And so I kind of had 6 months on, 6 months off, 6 months on, 6 months off. At the same time, I kind of went through the NHS as well, because we couldn't rely on the private medical route constantly, because there was a cap in terms of like how much you can claim. So then, yeah, I eventually just kind of kept going on and off this drug, but it was enough to keep my face clear. I could eat, do what I want. I started gymming again. I felt good. Didn't feel insecure. Kind of felt like I had myself back. And yeah, you know, I was just a happier person. But then it got to a point where the doctors basically said, you've been on this now for a few years. You need to just give it a break. So I basically went on like a I think it was like a 6 to 9 month break, just to see how the skin would react. And funnily enough, for 6 months it was fine. After 6 months, I could kind of feel like the oiliness was coming back, and then as a result, like I'd have a few, you know, random breakouts. So this was after like a couple of years of not having spots, not a single pimple. I suddenly got a pimple, and it was like, what the fuck's this? What has this little thing come up for? So then I was like, okay, obviously this is gonna now start getting worse. And again, because my lifestyle, food and stuff like that had not really changed. I was gymming more, so I was sweating, and like, you know, there was just more reason now for acne to break out. And it did. It came back with a vengeance. Like, it came back worse than it did even before I started Roaccutane. And this was kind of around the time as well where you know, I was trying to, you know, date and find someone to, you know, settle down with and find a girlfriend and all of this stuff. And that was really difficult because I was still working at the same place, but I was like, I was mentally I was in a worse place than ever. Like, seeing how good things can be and then having that kind of taken away from you and then being back in your kind of lowest zone, it was like I just couldn't deal with life. And then I can't remember what it was, but I saw an advert for something called a York test. I don't know if it's called York anymore, and I've seen loads of companies now that do this, but it's basically like a blood test, like an allergy test. So I ordered one. You kind of prick the end of your finger, send off a blood sample, and then a couple of weeks later they send you a results to say these are the kind of foods that you're allergic to and are kind of likely to be causing your acne. And there was literally everything that I ate on there. You know, eggs, coriander, pepper, like obviously chocolate, sugar was a massive one. That was like, I just didn't really have, I didn't make that connection. That sugar and chocolate that I was consuming was making my skin bad. Milk, dairy was a massive one for me. You know, I didn't have any. I used to have like cereal every morning. But what else was there? It was like heaty foods, like yin and yang foods. There were like cooling foods that they suggested to your body and your kind of internal system, as well as the opposite, which are the ones are heating foods that cause the acne. So like, for example, prawns would be really heaty for me, but crab would have the opposite effect. So I switched from prawns to crabs, so like with you know, certain seafoods and things that I would eat. So you get the picture. There were a lot of foods that I was having on a daily basis without really thinking about. I then had to cut those out, and funnily enough, my skin started to calm down. And even to this day, I know, and I kind of break my own rules now, because sometimes I just need to have a milkshake, or I need to have, you know, an entire bar of chocolate, which is normal. You know, you have these kind of days where I will eat it and I'll kind of be like, right, I know I'm going to get a breakout or some sort of, you know, bad couple of days with my skin, and I will. Or I'll have, you know, dairy, more than I should consume. Like, I'll probably have a bowl of cereal now and I'll be fine for the next, you know, the next day. But if I had like 5 bowls of cereal with the same amount of milk, I know the next day I'm going to have a breakout. So I've managed to kind of realize my foods that give me breakouts. Like today, you can't really see much, and funnily enough, I purposely didn't put any concealer on because I wanted to show you guys and kind of be as kind of comfortable and free as possible. And if I did have acne, I'd be happy to kind of show you, just to kind of prove my point. But for the days leading up to me making this video, I purposely didn't go over the top with sugar or dairy, just to kind of see. When in other videos that I filmed, you will see that I have acne. I will have some spots and I'll have some concealer, and for me it's really kind of around my nose. Don't know why, that just seems to be the area that I get my worst kind of painful breakouts. So yeah, I've kind of now managed to be able to control myself. I've found my triggers, and I'm sure that will be the same for you. There will be things in your life that you don't realize are giving you acne. It's not just, oh, I have acne, I can't get rid of it, it's just me. I used to think that, and I you know, tried different things. As I said, you know, drugs. I actually tried shaving. So obviously I've got a beard now, but I used to be clean shaved, and I found that the days, like the kind of years where I was shaving a lot more, so every other day I would shave, I would also have clearer skin. And sometimes you kind of have to go through a really painful period where you're like shaving over spots. But basically, if you're clearing that sebum and kind of oil from your skin, and you're almost like not letting that oil seep into the pores, or I can't remember exactly how I worked it out before, but it's like you're not allowing your pores to clog up by shaving. That also did work for me. But then I was like, you know what, I want to grow a beard. I like having a beard. I feel a bit more rugged and manly with a beard. And so I was like, okay, let's just try letting it grow, but I'll control the food and see how that works. And it worked fine. it, you know, obviously I wash my face. I use this kind of clean and clear cleanser. I'm like religious about that. I love that stuff. I feel like it's almost like a paint stripper for my face. It will definitely kind of clear up any oil and sebum and stuff, whatever's like clogged to my face at the end of the day. It will get rid of all of that, and I feel like I really can control it. But I have gone through some seriously hard years of acne. You know, I'm talking really depressing years, combined with my male kind of body image issues in general, just being, you know, bigger, overweight, being bullied, all of that combined, I was in like a really bad place. You know, I took down mirrors in my house. I'd avoid going out, as I said. I'd avoid going out, you know, when I was at home with my parents, to lunches, or, you know, going places, or if I did have to go out with them, I'd kind of lock myself away in the car. Like, I wouldn't want to get out of the car if we went to a restaurant or the supermarket or to a family friend's house. I'd just kind of say, look, just leave me in there. I don't want to get out of the car. I don't want people to see me. So I kind of know what it's like, and I know it's really difficult if you've got, you know, these kind of thoughts going in your mind. You know, you feel insecure, you feel like you're being judged. There's a good chance that you are being judged. That's the honest truth, because I was. And I think that's just the world we live in. There is just a culture of looking at someone and kind of having some nasty thoughts about them, which I'd love to change, but that's just the world we live in. The sooner we can just almost accept that everyone looks different, everyone goes through different transitions and transformations, you know, throughout their life, the happier the world will be, because there'll be less bullying, there'll be less people feeling insecure, there'll be less, sad, you know, I'm sad to say it, but people being so consumed by this topic that they take matters into their own hands and end their own life. You know, that's the honest truth, that these types of insecurities do impact people in that kind of way. And so maybe there needs to be more advocates out there to represent people with the insecurities, with the bad skin, with the you know, the extra tire around their stomach, with the man boobs, with the hair loss, whatever it is, whatever your insecurities are, they all kind of in the same bucket of body image issues. And the purpose of this channel is to just voice that and bring it to the surface and make everyone kind of feel just a bit more comfortable being themselves. As hard as it might be for you in that moment, trying to accept that you look a certain way, I'm sure you'll feel a bit more comfortable knowing, seeing and hearing about other people who are going through similar challenges and similar struggles, but also learning from them. How are they just living life day to day without worrying? Or, you know, maybe they've got a serious problem, but they just don't let it affect them. Don't look at me for the answer, because I'm looking for these people as well. I wish I could find people who, you know, are that confident that I can learn from, because I need to learn that kind of confidence. I need to build that confidence. But that's the whole aim. This is going to be a long journey, which you know, I'm hoping that I can help people along the way. I can help myself. I can just kind of get back the years that I've wasted being worried and feeling like I'm just constantly judged, and just make the most of the, you know, the time that we have left on this earth. Quite frankly, like, I've let these types of insecurities rule my life for so long, and it's only really now looking back that I just feel, what a waste of time. You know, worrying, locking myself away, preventing myself from going out having fun with my friends, or just, you you know, doing something that I really wanted to do, but I didn't because I didn't want to be judged because of the way I look. So yeah, I'm pretty sure there are others out there who have similar thoughts. So if this resonates with you, please do subscribe, follow me. I'm on Instagram, the mailman_1. But yeah, we need to kind of push this message out as much as possible, and the only way to do that is just to create a bigger following, you know, get more people on board, get ambassadors, get celebrities even, you know, people that have got their own insecurities, or they've gone through similar struggles, or they are going through similar struggles. You know, these are the kind of people that others will resonate with, and they might take more seriously than me. So yeah, help me push this message out, help me grow the brand, and yeah, I'm sure we'll get there one day. But until then, thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far, I know I can be quite boring to listen to, but I really do appreciate the people that are tuning in and following and commenting and subscribing. So yeah, thank you very much. My name's Punith.